Okay, we are going over, actually before I get into what we're going over, my class, most of you have been in here already, maybe one or two faces that are new. I operate on mutual respect. You show me respect, I show you respect, that's how it goes. Okay, so as long as you're not being a jerk to somebody, we're good. That includes me. So like right now, y'all are being great, awesome, thank you, showing me that respect, not being a jerk to me. I'm going to do my best not to be a jerk to you. If I ever be a jerk to you, that's not proper English. If I'm ever a jerk to you, please let me know. It's not my intention ever to insult you or any of that in any way, shape, or form. That's not what I'm trying to do here. So that's really my main one rule. The only other thing I ask is that you try to keep your phones out of your reach, and that is for your benefit, not for mine. The reason I say that is it's very easy to distract yourself, especially after a year of what we just did. So the best thing to do right now, because you're going to be right back in the full swing of everything in August, is just start getting those good habits kind of worked out, keep it in your pocket as much as possible, and trying to limit that distractions. You are what you feed. So whatever demon or angel you want to feed inside of you, that's the thing that's going to eventually become the strongest, most dominant part of your personality. So if you're constantly distracting yourself and allowing that to distract you, that will become a very deep habit. So really that's all I got to say about rules. You guys, I think, being sophomores, know what to do. This week we're talking about genetics. This reading assignment, most of what the questions are on it are directly out of your reading, and most of the questions I have are meant to help clarify what the reading is talking about. So, first time reading through this assignment, and I realize these are now backwards. First time reading this assignment, you're going to hear a lot about Mendel, and it might not be clear why they're talking about him. So the questions I have are meant to kind of draw out the important information of your reading. Basically, this guy right here, Gregor Mendel, spent a lot of time with pea plants. So you guys eat peas, you know what peas are. Well, apparently peas come in yellow and green varieties. I didn't know there was a such thing as a yellow pea. I've never seen it before. But, that being said, he discovered that the rules, essentially, of inheritance for certain traits. He was the first person to really figure out the rules of how traits go from the mom and the dad to the second generation and then the third generation thereafter. And what he ended up finding was the actual ratios of those traits. So if Bill and Tammy both have a kid, he figured out that if we're looking at eye color, well then 3 out of the 4 children they have will always have this eye color, and 1 out of the 4 may have this eye color. And he figured out those ratios for pea plants. So he is considered the father, the founder of the field of genetics. So that is what this is talking about. What your reading chapter stops at is monohybrid crosses and Punnet squares. And when you look at this week's assignments, you'll notice I mention Punnet squares in the week ahead, but I don't have the quiz posted up. So I'm going to have you guys practicing some of the genetic stuff, and there will be a little practice activity here, probably by the end of the day today. But I didn't want to post it until I gave you guys a video on how to do it. The video how to do it is Edpuzzle here, but I'm actually going to demonstrate it to you guys since you're actually here in class, so you don't need a video. And then I'll just post it up on second hour when I sit down, because I already have it ready to go. So check this out. There's some new terminology you need. If you want to write this down, you can. It's also in your reading assignment, so you might not need to. There's 2 different things to start off with. It's a genotype and a phenotype. Okay, that can be confusing until you kind of see what the gene refers to. So a genotype is the actual genes that you have. So for instance, maybe I have a dominant red hair color and a genotype. My phenotype would then be red hair. So genotype is the genes, phenotype is the trait that the genes code for. Okay, so keep that in mind. Moving on. Now, you have different types of genes that show up. You have dominant genes, and I'll start how about I start this over here? So your dominant gene and a recessive gene. Dominant is generally indicated by a capital letter. And the recessive gene is a lowercase letter. And really quick, what do you think we call it a dominant gene for? Like really hot. Think about the word dominant. If I say Wyatt is dominant in soccer, what am I saying?
He's good at soccer.
He's really, really good at soccer. He dominates everyone around him, beats everyone around him, right? Same thing is true for the dominant gene. It beats up the little one, meaning you don't see the characteristics of the recessive gene if there's a dominant one around. Because remember, you get one from your mom and one from your dad, right? So if your dad gives you a dominant gene and your mom gives you the recessive gene, you're going to exhibit your dad's traits. The only way you will exhibit the traits of the recessive gene is if both your mom and your dad have the recessive gene and give it to you. Okay? So anytime you have a dominant gene, it's the one that controls, and it's the one that you're going to see the trait for. Okay, so now that that's kind of out of the way, there's two more terms that I need to give you. And then I'm going to give you some examples. Homozygous and heterozygous. Homo means same. So that's why homosexual, the term exists. Same sex. Okay? Hetero means different. So a heterosexual is interested in the opposite sex. That's where those two terms come from. Okay? That's why the giggles always come up when I mention homo, so I just address it now. So, zygous, or zygote, if you guys remember the last chapter, your zygotes are your sex cells. So when I have homozygous, I put those two together, it means I have the same sex cells or the same gene. That's what it's saying. Hetero means I have different genes. So what this means is, homozygous, I would have, say if we're back to hair color, I would have either big R, or little r. So I have a dominant, or a recessive. Both of those would be homozygous. Okay? Heterozygous then would be big R, little r. So the reason you need to know those terms is because that's what's used in the scientific language, and that's how it will be discussed, right? Okay, so check this out. Mendel figured out the ratios, and then another dude came along with the last name of Punnet, and he came up with this neat little table to help us predict the next generation's traits. It's called Punnett square, and it looks like this. It's a square made of 4 squares. There we go. All right, so check this out. Let's go with, forget eye color. Let's go with body color, and we're talking about SpongeBob. So SpongeBob SquarePants is yellow, and the capital Y is the dominant gene for yellow body color for a sponge. But little y codes for blue, and that is the recessive gene. You don't see a lot of blue sponges, but they're out there in the wild, we know, right? Okay, so SpongeBob decides to have some sponge babies with Susie Roundpants. Now, Susie Roundpants and SpongeBob are both heterozygous. So what is their genotype going to be?
Different.
It's going to be the different one. So it's going to be a capital Y for SpongeBob and a lowercase y. And for Susie SquarePants, since she's also heterozygous, it's going to be a capital Y, lowercase y. All right, so that's how you set the table up. Now this is how you use it. Each of these 4 squares represents possible children. Okay, so this is out of 4 children that you could possibly have. This should turn out like this. This is the probability. So in this instance, SpongeBob donates his dominant gene. Susie Roundpants donates her dominant gene. In this one, Susie Roundpants donates her dominant gene, but SpongeBob donates his recessive gene. And this one, SpongeBob does his dominant, Susie does her recessive, and in this one, they both donate their recessive genes. Okay, so then what you have is information on the potential for blue or yellow babies. How many blue babies are we going to have?
1.
1. Exactly, this one right here. Because that's the recessive trait, blue, and the only time it shows up is if it has an additional recessive next to it. The rest of these are all yellow babies. Now, am I going to be able to tell the difference between their genotype?
No.
No. The only way I would be able to ascertain that, other than taking a blood sample of a sponge, which I don't think is possible because I don't think they have blood, would be to then take these children and cross them to see what happens. So let's say I took this child and this child here and crossed those in the next generation. I'm going to do that. By the way, this is generation F1. Generation F2 is what I'm about to do, and it's coming from these 2 kids. So I'll say kid A and kid B, we're going to cross them. Now, I'm going to get the exact same result, right? But now that I've gotten the exact same result, I can ascertain what their genotypes were. Because the only way to get this, where I have 1/4 with a recessive gene, is if both parents were heterozygotes. Now, what happens if I change it, and instead of doing this guy, I do this guy instead? Okay, well, I erase this, do a capital Y here, and that's going to change things quite drastically, actually. Like that. Do I have any children that are blue now?
Nope.
So I know that one of the parents has to be dominant, at least. And that's how we can figure out indirectly the genotype of the kids, if we can't do it off of their color alone. Okay? So this process seems pretty straightforward, right? Any questions on this? Okay. I'm going to post the quiz up for you guys, or it's not really a quiz. I'm going to post the practice for this, of this. How about I just leave that up for an example? In just a moment. So if you've already gotten into the work and whatnot, you're welcome to go straight to that. But there you go. So this week, you got 2 ed puzzles. You got a Mendelian Genetics reading assignment that is due tonight. And then you've got practice on this, which I'm about to post in just a minute. Today, like I said, I'm going to stay out of your hair as much as I can. Friday, we're going to kind of do some stuff together.